Welcome to Season 5 of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast with Adina, Brian, Cris, and Steve, the biggest sci-fi podcast in the galaxy. The adventure is just beginning here at the Big Sci-Fi Podcast, and we invite you to come aboard the Starship Tangent. We know you'll enjoy the conversation, the laughter, the banter back and forth, and most of all, friends who love hanging out to talk about all things science fiction. Set your phasers to fun. Here we go.
Good day, fans of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast. Normally, I'd open with some funny bit about this or that. However, today, I want to talk about a film that has meant a lot to me, Silent Running. But before we begin, let me say that we are proud as peacocks to be part of Trek Geeks. This fine website and service to the Star Trek community has given us a home to make available to you, our listeners, all the prior podcasts of our podcasts. So if you want to contribute to this and the other podcasters like Sci-Fi Sisters, thank you. Please continue to support Trek Geeks. And now to the show. But before we get going, here are the members of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast. They are Adina.
Hi, everybody.
Brian.
Yo, 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 yo. It's Brian from Ohio.
His favorite song. And Cris.
Hey, everybody.
Well,
that's all I got.
Song? Okay.
Do you want me to sing a song? I want to know what love is. Oh. I want you to show me. I've been listening to that nonstop.
Steve has already lost all control of this episode.
No, that's fine. A little music is always good. And of course, me, Steve, the host of today's episode. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's begin. I saw Silent Running in 1972 with the Andromeda strain. It was a double billing. Yes, I am that old to have seen double billings at the movies, and all for the price of 50 cents. Hey, I got to see the movie Big Hand for a Little Lady and the movie Bow the Bulge that way at the theater in 1966. Now, my dad took me to see Silent Running as he said it was an important environmental film. And I didn't understand what he meant. But after watching the Andromeda strain first and then Silent Running, I understood what he meant. Too often, sci-fi films deal with apocalyptic storylines, like Planet of the Apes. Nuclear weapons cause us to go back to the Stone Age, and apes are the predominant creatures on Earth. Or the film Soylent Green that followed in 1973 about what? Pollution, loss of food, overpopulation. What do we do with everybody? We turn them into food. So, yeah. This film did not follow that. But the idea of saving the last flora and fauna of the Earth in deep space leaves me with the hope that we can save our planet now more than ever. I had the great luck to meet the director of this film, Douglas Trumbull, at the 2019 Star Trek convention in Las Vegas when he chaired a discussion on special effects with Mike and Denise Okuda. After the discussion, he sat with Mike and Denise to sign autographs, and I, like many in line, when we met Doug, thanked him for Silent Running. He, Mike, Denise, and Jonathan Frakes all signed the bottom of the base of my model of the Phoenix that day at the convention. I don't often ask for signatures, but to have those greats do it means a lot to me. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox. That's it. Let's discuss this film with my fellow podcasters.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I've never seen the movie Soylent Green. You're telling me they decided to eat people?
They turned them into a product called Soylent Green. And
that's where the movie gets its name from.
Yes. And the interesting concept is the story takes place in 2024, as I remember reading someplace.
Oh, wow.
So we are right in the middle of Soylent Green, kids.
All right.
Well, so that's interesting that, how things kind of come into pop culture, but maybe not 100% completely, because that whole, that reveal of, oh my God, it's people, that is the crux of the movie. And
yeah.
I'm kind of I guess I'm a little shocked that, because I thought as a pop culture reference, everyone kind of understood and knew that. You didn't know that, Brian?
No, and Charlton Heston is in it, right?
He sure is.
So I love Charlton Heston movies for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can't believe I've never seen that.
Yeah,
I think
go ahead, folks.
I was going to say, I only heard about this because I went into it or down the rabbit hole looking for facts on my other favorite movie of all time, Brazil. And then eventually that led to, there's a movie where people actually eat other people that have been turned into food. I was like, well, that's terrifying. But I had never heard about this before.
So I just find it fascinating, how there are movies and things kind of go into, pop culture, and when people do and don't know about things like, for example, people who don't know about Star Trek still get some of the pop culture references of Live Long and Prosper, Beam Me Up, Scotty. I thought that oh my God, it's people reading people. I thought that was as ubiquitous, but I guess not.
Well, there is one factor you've not thought of why I might not know this, and it's the homeschool factor. But that might
no, but the thing is, you've been, an adult for a very, very, very long time, exposed to pop culture as an adult. So I wouldn't be surprised.
And I grew up watching Charlton Heston movies.
Yeah,
and
so it's just one I've
never saw it before. It's interesting because Charlton Heston starred in 3 very unique films during that period of time. He starred in Planet of the Apes.
Yep.
He starred in Soylent Green. He also starred in a film called The Omega Man.
The Omega Man. Freaky movie.
You've seen that one?
Yes, several times.
So which was a remake of a movie that starred Vincent Price called The Last Man on Earth. That came out in the early 60s.
I didn't know that.
Again, the same thing where the population is gone. Only in the Omega Man, it was zombies that were, it kind of made a zombie film.
The main zombie leader being Anthony Zerbe, Admiral Dougherty.
Oh, okay.
Aha, interesting. Cool. See, I don't remember. Very good, Brian. Very good. So let's begin talking about silent running. And the first question I was going to ask is, had any one of you had seen it prior to asking you to watch it for this podcast? And I'm guessing the answer is no. This is the first time for everyone?
This is, first time.
That's correct, but I wanna pick on that a little bit.
No, go ahead.
And it dovetails into what I was saying a moment ago with the things kind of coming into pop culture or not. And I think that's why this has been on my mind, is because I feel like I'm fairly well versed in quote unquote, classic-ish science fiction movies, especially movies from the 60s and 70s. But not only had I never seen this before, I was aware that there was a classic movie out there called Silent Running, and it was kind of one of those, every time I heard the name, I should look that up and everything someday. Before I started watching it, I did what it didn't occur to me is I had absolutely no idea what this movie was about.
Interesting.
In fact, I think in my head, I might have gotten this confused with Running Man. Is that the one I'm thinking? I don't know, but I think in my head I had it confused. I had this other image of what it was, and so
Logan's Run, maybe? Are you thinking
not
of
Logan's Run? No, because I know Logan's Run. That's one of my favorites.
So the Running Man, which was with
that was Schwarzenegger, wasn't it?
Yes. So yes, I think
the reality show or something.
I think I thought that this was a similar-ish movie to that. So I had zero idea, and I'm like, how did I get? I'm surprised. Like, how did I get this far? And knowing that Silent Running, in theory, is this classic movie, how did I not know? Like, not an iota of this movie. Like nothing. Like, how did I get this far in life and not know anything? And that's like what I'm struggling with, because again, I feel like I'm generally a well-versed person in this stuff.
Well, this is one of those cult films where it came out. It wasn't very successful in the theaters. Of course, back then they weren't making a lot of money. And it's only gotten some popularity because of having seen it on TV, if people saw it that way or whatever. It's still considered kind of a little cult film.
But still, I feel like I've been I hang around with people and in the mindset that I would have come across that. It would be something different if you were telling me that this was a movie in a fantasy or some other genre, that whatever. But this is in the genre. I know a lot of cult films. I hang out, I feel like, with the right crowds, and nothing. I'm completely blown away by my lack of knowledge and the fact that there are robots in it too.
Yeah.
And I knew nothing about these robots. When I see images of pop culture robots, I feel like I see everything. I don't see these.
Yeah, I haven't seen those either. I don't know. I'm in the same. I feel like I also know, but I just feel like every once in a while there's going to be a movie that even like the most hardcore sci-fi cult classic people just won't know about. I hadn't heard about this before.
Not knowing about it. I don't know. Like, I feel like I probably should have at least known that it was an environmental related film. Like, I didn't even know, like, nothing, zero.
I think you're being a little too hard on yourself, Adina.
But you do know about the Andromeda strain.
Okay.
You've seen that.
I not only did I saw it in high school in a science fiction class that I took. So, and I read the book, and we read the book too. I know the Andromeda Strain. I do know Logan's Run. I know Soylent Green. I know all these other films. How did I miss this one? Yes, I'm probably being hard on myself, but I don't know.
Well, now you say I've seen it and I know of it, and that's good. And that's why we have these podcasts to explore strange new movies, to seek out different films in different genres, to go where no movie goer has gone before. Oh my God, where have I heard that
where
before?
So many have gone before.
Oh, that's true. That's true. So now that the fact that you three have seen it, what did you think of the film? How did it make you feel? Any order?
It was a roller coaster for me. For one thing, I'll say this. What I usually Dill agrees to do this. So I appreciate dragging her into this. Whenever there's a new movie that we have to watch, I'll be like, "Hey, Dill, do you want to watch this with me?" So we looked it up, and she read the summary, and I'm like, "Okay, that doesn't sound that exciting right now. Let's watch something else." And so I watched it, kind of like, let me start it, see how I feel. But once I started it, I could not put it down. I kept saying, okay, 20 more minutes, then I'll go upstairs and get ready for bed and go to sleep. But it was engaging, but it was so depressing. And there were moments where I'm like, okay, is there going to be like a happy resolution? I don't know. It was just like, it was a roller coaster of emotions, but ultimately it was like, man, I feel really down about this situation.
It's not a happy-go-lucky film.
Yeah,
definitely. One of the things I found interesting about it, Steve,
yes,
is the main character is at odds with the other three guys up on the ship immediately, but he's got one guy that's trying to figure him out and trying to soften the other guys. That was all like, Adina has pointed this out about some 80s films, like just very cringeworthy, stereotypical joking back and forth. There's the one odd man out, who they don't understand, and they just look like a bunch of jerks. And, so I found like it was strange to me that he was so different from those other three guys that he almost seemed like the adversary.
From minute one, from the very, very, very beginning.
Yeah. Now, of course, as the film progresses, I think we kind of understand his character and some of his decisions a little bit more.
Yeah, I have.
But it was
there.
I do too. But I mean, for the sake of the story itself and what they're trying to show us and what statements they're trying to make, it's understandable from that perspective. But that was very strange to me, and I came to the realization, Steve, that I like Brad Dern much more as villains in films like Rooster Cogburn and The Cowboys or whatever movies he's been in. He's a great cowboy.
And he's still active. He's still...
Yes, he was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He played a crazy old guy in that. That's the one thing about Bruce. Cool. He plays crazy so well. whatever it is.
That's cool.
From being in a Twilight Zone episode of the Zanti Misfits to this, to other films, to even in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where he plays a crazy old filmmaker or cowboy in that. Yeah, it's what he does best. And in this one, he comes across that as well.
Yeah, I mean, he did fine in this for what really, if you, and Adina, maybe you can speak to this too, but I found the dialogue very simple. Like it was really about trying to get the message across. Like, hey, we have gotten that far gone that we care about industry and making money more than we do about caring. We're just gonna, for zero reason, blow up these forests. Right? They didn't even. Yeah. I don't think they explained why.
They just said they were going to return the freighters back to commercial use.
Yeah, commercial use. So
it was a very. I'm going to call it a one-note story with very little debate. It's almost like it was a short story that they turned into a movie.
It was, though. That's what Douglas Trumbull. I watched an interview with him, and it did start out originally as an idea that he hadn't fleshed out all the way. And so it was in essence a short story that they decided to turn into a film as the opportunity came. He didn't even think he'd get to direct it. He was shocked when he got the call to direct it. But anyways, yeah, I also want to say, we'll talk about the good stuff too.
And considering I was watching, thinking about this, Brian, your wife is involved in the forestry service.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, how would she feel if they told her, we're getting rid of the forests, we're getting rid of all that was ever the United States Forestry Service and jettisoning it out into space? It's,
Yeah. Well, so and that was one of the most. I was gonna say that was one of the most unbelievable. The way it came across, like he is the only human who care, and it's because we really have absolutely zero idea what's really happening on Earth and everything. It's very hard to believe that he's the lone guy that cares about this. It would have been nice to know if there was, say, a group of people on Earth who cared too, and he was the only one who's able in a position to act on behalf. Because as diverse as the people of Earth are, there's not going to be just one human who cares about this. There's going to be a lot of humans. And so that kind of made it hard, but that also, as a short story where you can't get much more detail in, it kind of works as a short story. But I was going to say, I wish I had seen it as a teen, even though I haven't seen it till now, or I wish I had seen it as a teenager, because I think I would have appreciated it a lot more, because I think I was in the headspace back then to not think about it as, I guess, a film the way we think of films today, but just more focus on that one little message, adding in the fact that when I was a teenager in my my senior year and half of my junior year of high school, I was the president. And for those who can't see what I'm doing, I'm making air quotes around the word president. I was president of my school's environmental club. And the air quotes are because we didn't really like to use titles like that. But at the end of the day, you have an organization, a group of people, and someone does have to be the leader. So I was. So my love of science fiction combined with my love of the environmental stuff, again, also makes it surprising that I didn't see it back then, but I wish I had.
Well, you think of that, this film came out in 1972. Earth Day, I think, started in 1970. I was going to middle school when this film was going on, and we were dealing with heavy pollution, problems with acid rain. I mean, this was the movie that said, when I watched it, I went, I understand what they're talking about, in that if we don't do something, there won't be any more forests. There won't be any more plant life if this all goes. And it just, the environmental movement was really starting to get going at that time. I mean, the EPA didn't even exist, I think, until around this same period
later
of time.
70s.
Yeah.
Well, and science fiction is always, especially in like the 60s and 70s, science fiction was very deliberately used as a vehicle to for a message about, hey, if we keep going this direction, there's going to be a nuclear war, or this is going to be that, or we're going to kill the environment. That. So it was a very deliberate use, and that's fine. That's nothing wrong with that. But
did
I
you
was going with that statement?
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in the same boat. So one thing I do want to say, going back to the acting, I actually liked the performance of, I can't remember what's the character's name.
Freeman.
So Lowell. I actually liked some of his bits. I like of course, whenever there's food, I love it. So I like the whole, this isn't food speech, because I'm like, this is very much like, now this is a deep cut. This is very much like Michael Eddington in DS9 going on about his tomatoes. So I enjoyed that aspect. I liked how he seemed a little bit crazy and how he was getting progressively more crazy, but also very calm. The dialogue wasn't so much that I found it simple. It's just there's a very specific way that I found, like, especially in movies of the 70s where people speak. It's I don't know how to describe it, but it is simpler. So it's not so much, I don't think it was badly written. I just think for me, it felt like, okay, this is the product of its time.
And consider who the writers were. Michael Cimino, who did Heaven's Gate and other films like that, and Steve Bochco, who did TV shows like L.A. Law and another one I forget. But anyway, these were really seasoned writers, or maybe at this point they were at the beginning of their careers and they were developing their film style. Their writing.
To me, it just seemed like it was just more the product of the time. I've seen other movies where I feel like even if you look at 2001, like some of their dialogue at times can be simple. I can't think of the character, the guy at the very beginning who's giving the conference, like the press conference, and he's like, hey, this is what's going on with Mars. He had a very much like, oh, hey, Frank, you want a cup of coffee? Oh, yeah, we're going to have some sandwich. Oh, yeah, and I'll meet you there. And it was, to me, it felt like, okay, that's just a product of the time. So that stuff didn't bother me. But like Adina, it's just like, I wanted more information about, okay, what's Earth like? What does he mean by everywhere you look, it's always the same people? Like it's the same. There's no difference.
72 degrees wherever you go.
Yeah. Like, what does that mean? It's all indoors? Are they underground? Like, what's going on? Are they still on Earth and they're able to survive even though there's no vegetation? So I had questions about that. I felt like this was a good first act to a film. Interesting stuff, but I would have liked more. I think just because I always like
it would have been nice,
more answers to things.
You're right, Chris. And I think if this film was remade today, they might show more of the actual situation on Earth. And because there's got to be other people going like he did. This is insane. When he gets the order that they're supposed to blow up everything and return around, so because they need the ships for commercial use, like there's got to be more people like that on Earth, and they just didn't explore that. It was all on the ship,
right? Again, this movie was made with a $1 million budget, so they were literally, I would think, scraping together what they could to make this film.
Right,
having shot it on a derelict aircraft carrier because they gave them the room. They even built sets. They just used what they had. So, except for the models, which, as I read, they were like 25 feet long. I mean, they were very elaborate for what they were shooting because he wanted to guess the detail. And again, Trumbull was a special effects man. He did Star Trek: The Next, the movie. He did
motion picture
2001. He did Blade Runner. So he was, this was something different, but he still wanted that detail on the spacecraft themselves.
You can really see the budget come through in the explosions.
Yes.
Where it's basically like lens flare, But
seeing the pull apart, when the models, when the dome came off. They're doing that separation. Yeah, that was kind of neat. And they had like the debris, like little, like ice chunks and debris come off. That was kind of, again, some of those effects were kind of nice and nuanced.
Yep.
The forest itself was really, looked like a really nice place to visit.
Yeah.
To go.
I think they did a good job with the sets. I liked the I can't, not stale. That's not the word I'm thinking of. Sterile. Like, I like the look, and I like their where they played pool. I like that area. I thought that was well developed. I like the buttons and the. So to me, the stuff looked good. I just felt like ultimately it was just missing a little something. And then I have like moral questions, some ethical issues, and then just the ending. I'm like, ooh, that was. I thought it was going to be all right. We rejuvenated it. You saved the day. We're gonna, appreciate that.
Are
But
we
it's like I honestly have not been able to stop.
We're going to talk about the song too.
Go right ahead.
The song was interesting. That's all
It
I'll
was
say.
Joan
Go ahead, Brian.
Baez. It was 1972. It
So
was
I
peace,
like
love,
Joan
and
Baez. I like her. I like her music, and so I was caught off guard when that all of a sudden I was like, "What am I watching?"
Yeah, there's one other song in movie history that is just as bad. I'm going to sing it for you guys, and it was not my
I didn't
favorite.
like it.
Let me
Out of place. I feel like it was just out of place.
Yeah, in the guitar music, like in it too. But anyways, here's the song that I'm going to sing. I'm going to sing a couple lines and see if you guys remember what film this was from.
Okay.
One of the other. I'm going to go out on a limb and say the song from Silent Running is one of the worst songs written for a film ever. I enjoy the sentiment of it.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's wrong with the sentiment or what they're trying to say at all. But here's the song. See if you guys. The moon's a window to heaven.
I was listening to this
For the eyes of lovers below.
Oh yeah.
Come on, Adina. Come on, Steve.
I've been listening to Final Frontier all week. Like, just put on my headphones, and I love it. I love that song, though. I actually really like the song. I'm just
wait, are you talking about when Uhura sings?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is.
Oh.
I've always wanted to play to a captive audience. Boys.
Well, I'm glad you chose that
part of
Brian, and not the opening to Enterprise. It's been a long time.
No, that's one of the greatest television themes of all time.
I love it too. And Dill may or may not be walking down the aisle to that. We don't know.
Let us know. We want a recording. No, you're right. It comes out of no place, and it's from that. Think it's 1972 folk music,
right? Yeah, it's very.
And
folk
so
music,
it's the type of folk music that would appear at that particular time.
And again, I think it's. The lyrics are fine. The singer's got a beautiful voice, all that stuff. It just seemed a little too far out there, if I may, for a sci-fi film, even to have that in there or in that way. I don't, they were going for something though.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's right on the money, and it's might be weird, but it might really work.
Yeah,
I didn't feel like it.
It is a bit preachy in its style, and that's
a bit.
I think it's a lot.
I'm being nice.
It's very explicitly.
Can I tell you that after I saw this movie, I had to go out and find the soundtrack. Now, it wasn't easy, and I actually went to this place near where I lived where they made bootleg movie soundtrack tapes, and I had a cassette of it. I don't know if I still have it or not, because it really touched me when I saw it as a kid. And I always liked it. And bring that, Brian, what did you think of, exclude the song?
Yeah, right.
The soundtrack. What did you think of that?
It was okay. I mean, it wasn't anything, John Williamsy or Jerry Goldsmith, but I think it served the movie well. I don't think there was especially at the end, just the simplicity of the dum dum. Dum, as the camera's pulling back out of the ship and you see what unfolds, because sometimes you can go overboard with music and it's too theatrical, it's too much, and I loved the simplicity in that moment. Actually, I thought that was a really good choice. But I mean, overall, I didn't really notice it. Normally when I don't like a soundtrack, I'm all over it. I'm like, hey, this is terrible. I didn't, except for this theme song. I didn't notice it so much. So I think
basically
it
was kind of it's in the background. It's just there.
Yeah, I think
without
it
it being
was fine.
over, like the commanding thing in it. The interesting thing is the man who composed it, and I'd forgotten all about who he was, Peter Sheckley.
I didn't recognize the name.
And I knew of him when I saw the name come up. I went, oh my God, that's PDQ Bach. That's like he did comedy, classical music.
I'll be darned, really.
And this is the only soundtrack he ever did. But he would compose. He was kind of like the Spike Jones of the 1970s and so on. And he just passed away last year, which I didn't know until I was watching the Grammys and they did the memoriam. And I went, oh my God, he's gone.
Oh, wow.
But I did actually see him in concert as PDQ Bach in couple 3 decades ago. And he was the very first CD I ever purchased of music.
Oh, really?
Was
interesting.
Which I still have it.
And another interesting fact, listeners of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast, I think every single episode we've ever had, Steve has at least one person we talk about that he's seen or met in real life. It's like it must just be the LA connection.
He lives in Hollywood, because he lives in Hollywood.
Well, when you get to like something, I mean, if I had a chance, if I grew up in the 40s or 50s, I probably would have gone to see Spike Jones.
Right,
his wacky and
I had
their
Spike
music.
Jones on cassette tapes. My grandmother gave me some of his music when I was real young, and I listened to it for quite some time.
Yeah, so he was more known for that. That is Peter Sheckley. He was more known for PDQ Bach and being a classically trained musician. So to see him do a soundtrack, which kind of interesting, but it was serviceable. It was serviceable.
Right. Yeah, I think it was fine for the movie. It was fine.
Now, were you surprised to learn that the droids were actually people inside there?
Yes.
No. You were? I thought it was obvious.
No, it was not obvious. Well, I thought they were puppets, kind of like Muppet style puppets.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Well, because these are people who are
amputated below the waist.
Well, I think 4 amputees. So yes, I was very surprised. I was not expecting that. I thought they were going to be puppets.
Yeah, and that they were standing on their hands as they were doing their bits. And again, they're part of the story in that he gives them the names of Huey, Dewey, and Louie from Disney.
Poor Louie, though.
Mm-hmm.
See, I instantly went to Huey Lewis in the news.
Oh,
so that's where I went to.
They weren't even around back then.
They weren't.
Yeah, they weren't.
Yeah, that's 13 years before.
But from a computer point or from a storyline, this is another example of computers learning or becoming learning machines, because he gives them the program to play poker.
Okay.
And they realize how to beat him. And that's was a fun thing in the film.
Yeah. But I mean, he programmed them. They didn't go off and learn poker on their own.
No. But once they learned it, once they were told, he puts in there how to play the game of poker.
Mm-hmm. So they played.
And then the scene where he's falling over laughing because he just got beat by his computers.
Yeah.
Which was kind of like, okay, so they were developing their own personalities or their own intellect so that he could end up leaving the one behind to tend to the forest after the movie comes to an end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I like that. I was just like, wait, how is he programming it? But at the same time, like, it's a movie. I'll let it go. But I find it odd.
Yeah, those were those things that they were plopping in the top. He was making programs and giving them. Which
I know he was doing that. It just seemed like, okay, so he does he have to have the knowledge of how to do the? Oh yeah, he does know medical stuff, so he can program it. But I'm like that seems sketchy to me, but interesting.
Yeah. I'll accept it, especially because, when I first got exposed to computers in the early 80s, that kind of, you keep your program on your cassette.
Right.
It was that was kind of normal. So even though this was 1972 and it was still the day and age of, punch cards, cards programming, cassettes were, the stuff that cassettes are on. the magnetic tape that existed, and so
Yes.
that kind of being like some extension of you are keeping the program external, and then you're giving it to them, and then you can replace it with something
Then
that
you can take it out and.
But
that
he's
seemed like a
actually
reasonable extension of what he was doing, of the 70s. Of the
he
early
was doing
70s.
something. They were printed circuit boards, so he was doing something using the microscope to be able to alter the programming based on the wiring of the circuit boards in that sense.
Because it wasn't this was still like, very, very, very early days of computing. When, again, it wasn't like what we do today. It was still kind of an evolution of thinking back to the vacuum tube era, where it was physical things that you're doing to program, not what we're doing today. So that was cute. I mean, that for me, knowing that this movie was in 1972.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
It's fine. It completely worked.
So let's get into talking about the moral aspect of the film, or the, what he does, why he does it, and then at the end of the film, the conclusion of what he does. What did you think of the moral aspect of the film, of his actions?
Yeah, so this is where I had the hardest time, because I understand what he's doing, and I get like the greater good of like he has to do this to save the forest, to save the dome. But I was like trying to figure out, it just seemed like killing these people was like the most extreme thing you could do. Like, because I had a theory, but I was thinking about this today at work, and I'm like, well, couldn't he try and knock some of them out, use a tranquilizer, use something, knock them out, put them in an escape pod so that they can be picked up by the other two ships? But it just seemed like I get why he had to do it, but these are people that are like, they're not even bad guys, they're kind of jerks. But ultimately, they're just doing what they're just following their orders. They're just trying to get home to see their family. So it just seemed like that was really extreme.
Well, he didn't have a lot of time either, because the doors closed, they launched out, and boom, So I think he was under the pressure of time. I mean, when his kind of pseudo buddy came in, he was we got to do this now. And for whatever reason, even if it was just, they just wrote it in, they got to do it now. They didn't explain why. They wanted to get home. It was that knee-jerk reaction. Like he had to defend himself too, because his buddy swung first with the shovel and tore his leg up. So I think it's.
I was gonna say that one was a little less deplorable.
Right. A little less deplorable. That's the key thing. A little less deplorable doesn't mean that it's good. But you're right.
No. But it's also interesting. I mean, there are people in prison who get enraged in one moment and make the worst decision of their life to hurt another human being or something else, and they're in prison. Otherwise, perfectly good life, but become enraged in one moment and just do that. I mean, it happens. Hopefully not all the time, but it does happen. And I think that
but you're getting to the point where
I think it happens. It's just like, it just seemed like to actively make that choice to write this character into that situation seemed like maybe it could have been handled differently, which I know is like.
Well, but for a movie, I mean, you high stakes and you drama and action. But here's the thing, and I think this ties to reality too. Is there are real people who value things above other humans' lives.
Oh yeah, no,
and
for
so
sure.
This dude all about the forest, like saving the plant life, which is extinct from Earth.
His life's work. Yeah.
But in some ways it's more than his life's work. It's like he thinks that is the highest calling to him. And like he's the only human in between like total utter annihilation of Earth's plant life and everything. And so I think that to him justifies it, like to him and his like messed up mind, it justifies killing these people.
It's just hard to spend like 2 hours or an hour and a half with him after that. Like I still like watching him, and it was still interesting. It's just like, okay, he did kill the dudes.
Yeah.
So that was where
a little remorseful. He's a little remorseful.
Well, and that's where you bring the end of the film, where he realizes, he thought he escaped from the other freighters, the other teams that were carrying other domes, and by going through the rings of Saturn and getting away from everyone, that they would never find him until at the end of the film they find him and he realizes he's going to have to pay for what he did, and he couldn't bring himself to do that. He couldn't allow them to take him, so of course he does the last thing he does, which is
I'm going to push back a little.
Okay, go ahead.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure. I didn't see that in his motivation for blowing up his own ship and killing. I saw that as one final act of him saying, I don't want anything to do with these crazy people that don't, that went this far to destroy all foliage on Earth.
No.
And destroy Earth. I don't think it was because the guys he was talking to, they weren't. How would they find out anything that he did?
Well, because he kept making excuses as to what happened. Hey, Lowell, we looked at your spacecraft and we don't really see something. He says, "Oh, it's on the far side." He's making excuses for what leading, and then he figure it out. And then he's sitting with the droid or with the drone, and he says, "I'm going to have to pay for my actions." Mm-hmm. He realizes
he did say, "I missed that." Though.
Yeah, and he realizes, okay, I went to pay for my actions. I killed 3 people, but I still can't let the last forest go. This thing I fought for.
Right.
Which is he
then I guess. Yeah. I mean, I think they kind of led us to say he would jettison that forest. He would not let them get the forest and destroy it.
Right.
But yeah, I guess for me, and I must have read. I just missed that line altogether. That's really helpful because I'm obviously got some wrongness in my thinking.
That's okay. I mean. You guys are very detailed on a lot of things, so if something gets missed, and again, that's why we're having this discussion here.
So I do want to go back to something Cris said because I think that the thing is, especially if this were to be a remake today, I think we would only really be able to accept it if that character, if he had a more socially acceptable moral compass. Where, yes, he's uberly committed to, I am going to protect this forest with my life, but I'm not going to be immoral while doing it, i.e., I am not going to callously kill other people. Yes, he might accidentally or kill someone in defending himself if he gets attacked. But the other two, those were very callous, and even though he's a little under the gun pressure, there was still a little tacticalness to it because he let the dome go and detonate it, kind of very knowingly. There was a little bit of planning. And so that's where, he doesn't have the kind of moral center I feel like we need today for sure to accept him as a character that we can root for.
Because think about this, even Batman refuses to kill. And he doesn't want to kill the Joker, even though the Joker is messed up and has done a lot of things. So I think, Adina, you're right that if we were to remake this today, there might be maybe let's not. Some changes.
And back then, they were making films with the anti-hero. The guy that he does something terrible, but it's for the greater good or whatever his thought process is.
And it was all about that message.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Getting the message across.
I was struggling with that because maybe they didn't. Maybe the writers and the filmmaker Douglas Trumbull didn't want us to necessarily be cheering on his character as much as the overall message they wanted to get across of just the insane situation they were all in with Earth, having destroyed a ton of its natural resources. But I also I found myself wanting to Lowell.
Yeah.
But it was oh man, these robots are really what I like, and the little cars, the 4-wheel cars they were racing around in, that's what I really liked. It would have helped, I think, a little bit more if even Lowell was a little more charming naturally.
Because they don't like. I don't get the anti-hero vibe, because usually when a movie has an anti-hero as your main character, they make it very obvious that this guy's an anti-hero, but they don't seem to really make it obvious in this movie. They make it feel like this is the person you're supposed to root for. So I definitely have mixed feelings about that.
Yeah,
but I have to say, though, on the side note, that pool device, I don't know why I'm so fascinated by it, but this device that I think it's like you can reset it, so it'll always like play the pool. You'll like could be like, okay, reset from last game, and then it will. I don't know what that's called. Why am I not thinking of the right term? But it'll try and reset the game for you. I thought that was interesting.
And that was, again, very early rudimentary robotic systems for manufacturing, that it would pick up something and drop it into another location and so on and so forth.
But what's really hilarious was in terms of like resetting the balls to play pool, slow as anything. I'm like, really? Come on. I get wanting to play with the robot, but the human, you set it up. Just you rack it.
It's like that first scene when they all go in and, the robot misses the shot and they're just, it's like the actors are saying, oh my gosh, let's get on with this. It was terribly slow.
But having the robots, training them to play, a game like poker, that I get that. That's fun because again, you just have something to interact with and, and everything.
Yeah, because he's all by himself.
At the end of the day, right. And at the end of the day, a lot of poker is going to come down to how the cards are dealt, which, you can't, they're going to be dealt how they're dealt.
I just want to know if they intentionally made Lowell seem
crazy,
like just strange and crazy for a reason, or if it's just choices of the actor and director. Is it, because I just at the very it was obvious he was the main character. Obvious that we were supposed to sympathize with him, and throughout the film it was. I wanted to, but I just couldn't. And it was honestly way more than just the fact that he killed these three guys too. He just wasn't very likable. And so it was hard. And I think that's a little unfortunate for this film. And again, nothing against Brad Dourif. I really love a lot of his films, and I think he's a great actor. And I even think he did great for like lines he was given. And he had some moments like when he's praying over his comrade as the robots are burying them. Fantastic acting. I mean, just, really good actor. I just, this is one time where I go, oh, I'm not.
I was rooting for the forest.
Right.
So again, there's not often a lot of films where it's just ends up being one actor playing all the. I mean, you got a film like Gravity where it's just Sandra.
Well,
she's this. And they've got to be good actors to keep you going through the entire film, since they're not interacting with any other actors in the film. And
I think writing has a lot to do with that too, though.
Yeah.
And I think it again, that's where I go back to the dialogue was just kind of, there just wasn't enough there for me to. They could have explained a lot more just with dialogue.
That's true. That's true. And I think we can say it. Go ahead, Adina. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I think, again, in keeping with the time, the 1972 time, I want to say it fits. Just wouldn't work to, if we remade it today, we're remaking it with a fresh script in so many ways.
Are you talking about? I don't agree. Are you talking about science fiction films in particular? It fits in with how they wrote that, or?
Yeah, well, just
like explain that a little more, because
I want to say the way Cris said it, I think a few minutes ago, about it being in some ways simple, or I was saying kind of one note ish, and I would say like, let's say you just read the script, imagine someone puts the script in front of you, just a script in front of you. And you don't know the name of the movie. You don't know what year it came out. They're just, this is a movie that came out. And you were to just purely read the script and you had to guess the decade or possibly the part of the decade it was, I
Mhm.
feel like you'd be able to guess the time period of this movie. That's the best way I can explain it.
No, I think you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. So if you were to remake this movie today, what would be the threat that what would he want to protect now that we have
Oh, we
that
can
we could
still
be
do.
losing? And you
I
still
think
think
you
you
could
could be
still
doing an
do.
environmental film like
Yes,
this?
I think you could still do something very, some of the core elements could be the same. I think you could
Mhm.
still say, hey, we're having climate problems on Earth that's going to kill our plant life. Let's send these things into space. There'll be these domes that are keeping the plants alive, and we'll do a bunch of them to make sure that they're, they're gonna survive. And we're gonna send a team of people with them. Go. Okay. But then among the team of people, and so each one of these ships has a team, maybe a small team of a few people, but one of them is the environmentalist, is the biologist, the botanist, whatever. And the rest of
Mhm.
them are just support people, that are just there because it's a job. Okay.
Mhm.
And the big difference, what you do is you have communication back home, so that botanist guy can be talking back to people on Earth, so he can be talking back to his homies who are also outraged environmentalists. Now you have these mega structures are still, large ships are still controlled by corporations who at the end of the day don't care about plants or not. They care about where money is coming and going. And this
Mhm.
is no longer profitable. You can still do that. They want to do
Mhm.
something, but it's just now how that interaction goes, that Lowell is maybe not the only, one acting. And then again, he's got a little bit more of a moral compass. So he needs to try to save the forest, but he's not going to just callously kill other people to do it.
Mhm.
Like, again, I think you can still do something very, very,
Oh, I
very
want that.
similar with
I
a few
guess
of these
the
elements.
current film, the only thing that comes close to that right now, if I'm not mistaken,
Mhm.
would be uh my brain just went hold. James Cameron's film. Blah, 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 blah.
Avatar?
Avatar. Thank
I
you.
was thinking as a better analogy
Mm.
in some ways, not the environmental part, but the kind of thing is where you have someone that's got a big, big mission, but like The Martian in some ways has a similar vibe where you have someone out by themselves. They can eventually
Right.
communicate back to Earth to solve
Mhm.
whatever problems they're solving.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
I think there's similar vibes there, and why you could say it work. And even again, Gravity was a good example too, where you have someone out in space dealing with a problem. And again, well, her connectivity again back to Earth was also, not a thing. But I think there are similar modern films that you could draw from as a way to think of this could work. There could be a modern version of this.
Okay.
Mhm. So, question
Mic
though,
drop.
because we're talking about the like interacting with other botanists, is it like it's strange that you would never interact with the other? Presumably there's two other botanists on the other two ships. Who wouldn't they also be as not? I
Maybe.
shouldn't say crazy is not the right word, but as passionate as him
Well,
about the environment, or
we
but it's just
don't
like we don't
know.
know,
Well,
which
we
is
don't
odd.
know that the other ships also staff the botanist. He could have been originally the one for the whole fleet.
Oh, yeah. This
We
would have
don't
been
know. We
nice
have
if they
no
had
idea.
explained that.
Yeah. And they
Yeah.
and I guess that's why they brought it down that he was the only one who gave a rat's patootie
Mhm.
about the forest, and the rest of them were all just, come on, Big Bill wants to go home, let's blow these things up, and like they're all going, great, we're going home, and he's the only one who's going, no, I don't want to do this, we can't do this, and of course he goes to the
But
extremeness.
back to Adita's point, we need to make a list of all the movies we're remaking. So far we have Explorers, and now we have Silent Running.
I feel like any movie that we talk about that's more than 25 years old is going to be put on that list.
Put on that list.
But here's another way to turn it around that has another modern vibe. So let's say you have a team of 4 people per ship, or maybe it's just a one ship, because maybe in reality, and if we're drawing it a little closer to space realism, they only sent out one ship. The one ship has several domes. The one ship with four crew members on it. So maybe when they get the order, hey, you guys need to, we're letting these go. You need to do whatever and come back home. Maybe it's really, you've got the team of people who are like, wait a second, we're getting this order. How do we counter this order? I mean, yes, we want to go home, blah, blah, but then you have the one bad guy who's like, nope, I'm blowing this stuff up now and everything. So instead of having the one quote unquote good guy and 3 quote unquote bad guys. You flip it around. It's like you have 3 environmentalists who really want to figure out a better way to do this. And then the one guy who just cares about blowing stuff up and coming home.
Or you could have that moment like on Hunt for Red October where Alec Baldwin goes, "You're the blank chef. You're the chef." And then he shoots the living daylights out of him, like that's the guy who's been sabotaging.
No, but
Anyways,
you've got a good idea there, Radina. So
I do. I have lots of good ideas.
Yeah. So two things.
Sorry, Chris. Another 1972 film is The Godfather. You're telling me if you read that script, you're going to be able to place it in the 1970s.
No, okay. I'm going to say here's a big difference between The Godfather and this. The Godfather was
not sci-fi.
Well, okay.
No,
okay, that's one difference.
Not, but it could have been.
Was based on a book. So the book, you've got like tens of thousands of words to build the foundation for what became The Godfather.
If you're going to use logic, I'm just not going to argue with you anymore.
Sorry. That's all I know.
Okay. All right. Then let's take it. The film that I saw with it, The Andromeda Strain, came out around the same time.
Also based on a book.
That's true. You're right. It was.
And not only book, who wrote the book?
Michael Crichton? Was that? No. Who was it? Who wrote the book? Come on, Dina.
Yes, Michael Crichton. Sorry.
It was. Okay, it was Michael Crichton. Who also wrote, did he write? He also wrote Jurassic Park. Is that right?
Yeah.
So again,
he's written, it was based on a book.
And both movies are based, and The Martian is based on a book. So you have detail to work with to build a movie, whereas this was a standalone script. It just came out. Or as you said, Brian, possibly based on a short story that they were developing that may have come around about it.
Right. Yeah.
But even a short story, it's very
The short
compact.
story is very, there's not a lot of detail, not a lot of meat in a short story.
Yeah, you have to get to the conclusion quickly.
And Trumbull did say in the interview I watched, this was very not fleshed out originally. He had the main ideas of what it could be, and was somewhat surprised when it was actually going to be turned into a full-length major motion picture. And so then they started writing around it. So that's fair.
Interesting.
Can I ask a question about the end game? What was where does he expect the dome is going to go, say in 10, 20 years?
He makes that statement. Remember, he makes a statement about I once put a note in a bottle and threw it in the ocean. I don't know if anyone ever found it. So his idea was, I'm just launching this into space.
We'll see what happens
to it. Whatever happens. It's as much as we have 2 spacecraft that have now left our solar system, and they contain a gold record on them with information about who we are. If they're ever found by another species, we'll all long be gone. But we're hoping that, hey, we put a message in a bottle. If somebody finds it, they'll know at least that we exist.
Oh, okay. So I was thinking, was he thinking maybe in 10 or 20 years, maybe there'll be some other other Earth ships that might roam and be you know what, we see this dome, maybe we can use it. But I did find that strange. Okay, I sort of get it, but I'm I'm still confused about what your ultimate
and how long would it last?
He didn't really have an end game. That's the thing. Yeah. He didn't have an end game.
Yeah,
he didn't.
Right.
Which I agree with Steve. Yeah. With that message in the bottle was kind of his explanation for that. That's the only insight into that.
Right. And that his problem was solved by putting up some, high intensity lights, and that would generate the missing equation, which was sunlight, that they were, that was it. But
which I also feel like that was kind of weird too.
Yeah, I know, but that was a very simplistic answer to his question.
Well, not that it was a simplistic answer that took him that long to figure that out.
Yes.
He didn't know. He's been studying this for 8 years. They don't have records of that. We don't know how far into the future it is, but it just seemed like surely he would have access to that information. That sunlight's kind of critical.
Yeah. That was
then
a
he,
little.
like-
I had a hard time with that.
I know, but that was
Yeah.
like, yeah. And again, even though, how does the perpetuate itself to generate electricity to do this? Is it a nuclear power plant in this thing? How does it last forever? It's not going to. But
We don't know.
neither did Lowell. He didn't last forever either at the end of
No.
the film.
And I'm okay with not knowing that. There's so much more we don't know about this film. Background. I'm okay with not knowing that piece of information. Does not bother me that it's missing.
Any other thoughts
Yeah, I know.
about the
I know
film?
how they feel. They kept playing that blasted song over and over again, and that created energy for everything. Good vibes. That's how the shit was.
All
Good
right.
vibes.
Joan Baez is right now crying because of what you said.
No disrespect. It's just not my favorite.
All right.
Sorry,
Any other
Dean.
last thoughts before we come the end of all life on our Earth as we know it?
I would like to say something. I'm glad you had us watch this film because
Yeah, me too.
even though it's not the most exciting film in the world, it is. It's Chris is spot on. I wanted to keep watching it, so there was something about it that kept my attention. So in that way, I think the film was a success for me. That it had enough in it to make me want to keep going and actually see what happens. Moonfall I could have turned off at any moment in time and not cared without. I will say though, Steve.
Yes.
I don't know if I want to say this. I said it off camera before you came on, but I'm not sure I want to.
What?
Anymore. I think this is one of those films I'm probably never going to watch again. And that's obvious. We all have those films.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm not going to be. No, I don't. Should I, guys?
I will
The
say I
suspense
sort of
is
want to
killing
watch
me.
this.
Yeah, I don't know what you're referring
Suspense
to.
is killing me.
I will probably watch Moonfall before watching this movie
that.
again.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, no.
Not Starship
remember
Troopers,
that.
though.
You got to remember.
Starship Troopers is.
This is different. Moonfall's a comedy. Okay, that's a comedy. All right. And you can watch a comedy again because you're
whole
waiting for
different
the
genre.
bad jokes that are going to be in it. Okay.
I'll just say
This
this.
is
I had
not a
some
comedy.
brownies
This is
when I
a
watched
tragedy.
Moonfall.
Okay. This is a tragic film. That movie isn't tragic. It's just a comedy. All right.
Had brownies from Domino's and they were fantastic. That was a good weekend. Like that was before I went to Vegas. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to Vegas tomorrow. Let me just get some Domino's and some brownies, and we'll get through. And watch Moonfall.
I was just asked to speak at an event in March, and they lured me in with high-end Domino's pizza.
Oh wow, really?
They use the words high-end Domino's carry-out pizza. So
that hurt.
I love me some Domino's too, Chris.
Are you getting cheese in the crust? I hope you're getting cheese in the crust.
I don't know. But I will say this. Adina, the best pizza I've ever had was when we went to that pizza shop in Long Island with you.
Oh, yeah.
When we were at Trek Long Island.
We got to go back.
That
was, if we don't hit that up again, that's got to be a tradition now.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Yes, it really was. It was quintessential New York pizza. It was big. It was giant slices. It had lots on it. It was delicious. But I got to try your calzone. Your calzone looked great.
Yes, it did. It did. Yeah.
And those.
But I will say.
Yes.
I sort of want to watch it again because I still have, I think, another day or so left on my rental. I'm kind of like, I'm curious about it. Because it's one of those ones where, unlike Brazil, like I can't stop thinking about it, but not because it's creepy, but just because I'm intrigued by the premise. And I have so many questions, and I like the way it was designed.
Again, then give it another shot. That's great. Again, the fact that you all watched it once is enough. You don't have to make it your favorite film, but at least we're exposing ourselves even to Moonfall. Yes, even to Moonfall.
By the way, the other awesome classic films, science fiction films of the early 1970s, the ones I can think of are all also based on books. Clockwork Orange, Logan's Run, Slaughterhouse 5, all based on books. Take books and make books into movies. I might know a few books for that.
There's this nice girl named Ruby. I'd love to see her on the big screen. I think that would be great. I think, and then we get to see if there's actually enough sunlight to grow plants on Titan. Then, if it can, we know that it would have worked for this. Since he was out by him. Anyway,
he was.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. Silent and Running discussed, and we were neither running nor were we silent in our discussion of this film. If you, our loyal listeners, have not seen this film, you can go to Prime Video and rent it. I have owned it, the DV, for many, many years, and it was a pleasure for me to watch it again. Well, once again, thank you for following the Big Sci-Fi Podcast. All our episodes are on Trek Geeks, and if you like this episode or any of our prior episodes, be sure to share, post, or comment on Facebook, on Instagram, or whatever platform you use to listen to our podcast. And please, if you want to, send us your thoughts via email at thebigscifipodcast@gmail.com. If you send us an email, I know we'll respond. And please, your comments help to move us the pecking order of podcasts. And also be sure you buy your tickets, your airline tickets, your hotel reservations, whatever it is, whatever you need to do, and be at Trek Long Island come May the 31st through June the 2nd. We'll be there to meet you and to have some fun, play some trivia or whatever, but make time to go to that event. And finally, and this is important, we don't want to have to eject our forests into deep space to save them. So my suggestion to you is this: go to your local state, your national forest as soon as you can. The great President Teddy Roosevelt established the National Park Service over 120 years ago. Now, I don't expect you to go hug a tree, but visit a park, visit a botanical garden, marvel at the beauty of a flower, a tree, even the thorny ones. They convert CO2 to oxygen, and without them, we'd be Venus or Mars. And as always, I leave you with these parting words. Look to the sky, live long and prosper, and talk to your plants. They will love you for it.